Humanity. What does it mean to be a human today? Today, we're diving into something that affects every single one of us, whether we realize it or not. We talk about politics, but not in the way you might expect. Not about which side you're on, but about recognizing that politics shape our everyday work lives. From taxes to the roads we drive on to get to work, these systems impact all of us. But more importantly, we talk about communication, about how hard it is to be vulnerable, about why we desperately need better ways to listen to one another and connect as human beings again. Self help today can feel overly polished, flowery, and cliche, but real growth isn't always pretty. Sometimes growth looks ugly. Sometimes it means sitting in discomfort. Sometimes it sucks. We need connection with others more than anything, and to put humanity in front of humanity. Let's roll right in. All right. Welcome to the Work Sucks, but I Like It podcast. Today we have Vanessa Younts. She's known as Vanessa The Vivacious. As a podcaster, filmmaker, video journalist, musician, and podcast host herself of Humanity 2.0. She was previously the managing director and a contributing video journalist with Are You Happy? I just want to say, too, for you listeners, Vanessa and I met actually at Podmatch in 2026, and we were super excited to get on the show today. So, Vanessa, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. So excited to be here and good to see you again.
No, awesome. Absolutely. So, as you know, Vanessa, how do you define work?
I define work as mm, it's funny because it has a negative connotation with me when I think of my previous work, but I define it as it's a part of your identity almost, but not all of your identity. It's something that takes up a portion of your time, and it's up to you to choose on how positively you feel that time and how fulfilled you feel with that particular period of time. So when I think of work, I think of, this period of time where we are able to decide, how we navigate it and how we feel it and how do we walk away from it too. So it's funny that I think negatively.
Yeah, well, I hear you though. How do you fill your day then?
Oh, I fill my day with amazing things now. I work for myself, so I manage my own production company, and I've done so for the last 5 years with normal corporate jobs and also without them. And so my day to day is meeting with clients that could be video, podcast, or film, and then working on my own projects as well. I have two films that I'm working on. I have a book that I'm working on, and then, also the podcast. So my day is so creative. And then observing humanity and editing humanity in video form. And it's beautiful. It's a lot of work, but it's really beautiful.
But you love it. Yeah. So I love your podcast, Vanessa, in terms of like the perspective that you take on with humanity. Why do you call it Humanity 2.0?
That's a great question. So I call it Humanity 2.0 because I believe that we can strive to be that 2.0. Right now, we're in the 1.0 where we're going through a lot of struggles. There's a lot of issues worldwide, both personal and political and social economic, right? And so we are struggling, and there's a lot of sadness and grief and discomfort. And so I believe that if we were to listen to one another and to communicate and really connect, then we could become more empathetic and more compassionate, and we could, develop, answers to some of these problems. And so by that, we'd be able to create that humanity 2.0 where we lead with empathy first and we care about the person next to us. And when we ask someone, hey, how are you doing today? We actually mean it. So that's what I'm looking forward to. I've observed humanity for the last 6 years now, and I know that it's possible. I've seen it. I have it on, hours of footages on 2 terabyte hard drives. So I know that it's possible. And so with my show and also my video series, my whole point is to put humanity in front of humanity so that we can see ourselves and we can see this goodness, but also we can share in those tragic moments and say, me too, and then say, I'm not alone. And, let me find my community where we could grow together. But yeah, I really think that Humanity 2.0 is where we're headed.
So one of the things we say in the show, Vanessa, is that success is not a matter of good luck, it's good skills. Now, from the terabytes of video that you have, what is one skill that you've sort of taken away that you've seen people living this sort of Humanity 2.0?
So I would say that just the art of resilience is what I see. I see people talk about coming from struggles or being in the midst of a struggle, yet they put on this smile. And when you ask them for a message to the world, whether it's about humanity, a message of hope, or it's a message to the world in general for are you happy? People tend to set aside the difficulty and really pull from inside and share these really authentic messages because they want other people to be inspired and take away from their life experience. So I would say that there's not one person I've ever looked at that did not have a piece, or if not a great amount of resilience.
That set aside the difficulty, I feel like is very hard for people to do. Why is that?
Well, it's difficult because for some it's I guess entangled in everything. I mean, if you have economic struggles, right, at home, then it feeds into what kind of job you have. It feeds in, how far can you go for work? What kind of work do you do? And then also if you have little kids at home, you're worried about how you feed them. If you have, sick elderly parents, or maybe you can't afford healthcare, then it's affecting quality of life. So there are some instances where our problems and struggles can really just root into all aspects of our lives. And then for some, I would include myself in this, having grown up in just, I would say, a struggle environment. I kind of developed these skills where I would look at things from I guess, like a zoom out sort of lens. And I would say, okay, what about this can I fix right now? What can I make a plan to fix? And then, what do I do once I fix that? What's my next move? So I've always had these multiple plans, or these multiple frameworks of what I could do to fix the now or to fix the later. But I didn't accept that position is where I was and that's where I was going to stay.
How do you manage the emotions with that, right? I guess, like, as you're trying to sift through all these, like, somewhat challenging topics, a lot of emotions come up. How are you handling those as you sort of sift through this?
Well, when it comes to interviews, I allow myself to be in the moment with the person. So I do allow myself to experience them. But then afterward, when I'm thinking about it and kind of breaking it down, I establish that boundary, knowing that that's not me. I'm not that person, but I have deep respect and empathy for them. So I learn to kind of put that boundary so that way I don't fall into what it is that I'm hearing. There are tons of editors that I've known in the past where all they did was edit videos and see these stories and hear these stories, and really, really terribly sad stories. And that was a common practice, was that, okay, you can recognize it and you can feel it, but don't let your entire self become part of that particular feeling, if that makes sense. Um, in a personal life, I worked as a claims adjuster, and I received training on how to separate yourself from a situation. So that became some kind of a acquired skill that applied to life as well. So I've thankfully been able to apply some corporate skills into personal life, but I feel like, at the end of the day, we're all human and we still feel things. And if we can recognize that, those feelings at the end of the day, they're not us, they're not all that we are, and we can, still function alongside them, and we can still embrace them and feel them, but they don't have to encompass our entire being.
Gotcha. So I'd love to, like, kind of dive into politics. I know it's sort of a topic that I don't do much on the show, but I feel like you're saying, these problems can kind of permeate in other parts of our lives. And let's face it, we're at a very big divide here in the United States of America right now, whether you're a Democrat, a Republican. So what are your thoughts to sort of work through that? And again, I love this kind of image in mind. Where's that humanity 2.0? How can we get
Right.
to that with politics?
I actually posted a video, not, or maybe it was a graphic, not too long ago. I posted a graphic about listening and how listening is key to everything. And if both sides, all sides, because there's more than just red and blue, but if all sides could just listen, and stop talking and stop trying to push their agenda only, because there's not always just one side that's correct. But if we could, listen to one another and maybe pull from all of them and come with a consensus, or even, just allow the other person to talk because they may have a better idea and maybe we're biased because of what side they're on. And so listening is key. That's the first step for us, to heal, to come together, to problem solve. I really think that that is it's the most difficult thing for people to do, because we also love to hear ourselves talk, right? Sometimes you may find yourself listening to someone and you have an idea on the next thing that you want to say, but you have to fight that and you have to go back to active listening and really hear everything they say so that way you can respond appropriately, but really internalize their message. So, in the world of politics, I think everyone could use another course in listening.
Well, I mean, you and I are practicing this as podcast hosts, right? I don't know about you, but sometimes I'm thinking, oh, I want to take the conversation this way, but no, I got to pay attention to Vanessa. Definitely have that listening that I'm continually doing myself. Why is it so competitive with speaking today? And I guess like that, I guess I'm just trying to figure out where sort of like the problem is with people listening. Cause I just find, let's talk politics. It's just very charged emotionally. There's a lot of competition for some
Mhm.
reason. What are your thoughts surrounding that? How do we soften that? How do we get to listening amidst the competition?
Well, I mean, we have to practice at taking things apart, and there's a lot of noise, right? A lot of political noise. And then there's also a lot of noise that we receive from social media and from other forms of media, right? Their whole premise is to get your attention. And so we're almost wired to be inundated with all kinds of noise. And so I think that we have to kind of peel apart like layers of an onion and kind of get to where we're not, just inundated by noise, but we could actually focus on whatever that core conversation is and actively listen. So I think that's an art form in itself is peeling everything away and trying to hone in on just that single conversation.
Is that a personal sort of journey with the onion? I've heard that a lot, right? You're kind of peeling back the layers.
Yeah, it is. I mean, we're all onions, we really are. As you know, when you interview people and you peel back all of these layers, and then also at the end of an interview, sometimes you might find someone say like, "Oh, I didn't even know I was going to say that," or they just talk about things that they never intended to, but then that's another layer of that particular onion. I mean, it's beautiful how complex people are, but at the same time, they're also simple in the sense that we all have commonalities that we can understand and build on.
Absolutely. I feel like today, I mean, especially with the work you did with Are You Happy? I mean, people come across as happy. They may look happy, but inside, when you ask them, they're not. They actually just like
Yes.
break down. It's very amazing to see for you listeners. Go check it out. Are You Happy? Watch any of them. And it's incredible to see these stories sort of unfold. Why do you think we put this sort of like armor around our onion?
Onion armor. Let's
Yeah,
see.
yeah, you're right. Yeah, except for Under Armour, we got onion armor. Yeah, yeah,
Well,
right.
if you shop at Kroger, it has onion armor. If you shop at Whole Foods,
Yeah,
it's just
no,
an
no
onion.
kidding.
No,
Okay, that's funny.
I we you know I think that it has to do with our previous life experience. If you come from a background where maybe you dealt with some really hard things and you had to develop this shell, so that shell grows with you and it becomes thicker, maybe. Or maybe you get a therapist and it becomes thinner and maybe it goes away. But I think just over time, just like the culmination of life experience, it kind of builds that armor around you. So then as an adult, you have that. And it takes a lot of self-discovery and a lot of, healing to kinda start peeling back, and maybe it's talking to other people and communing with people like you to peel back those layers, but I feel like we don't talk to each other enough, right? We don't spend enough time in groups and, going out. When I decided to kind of venture on my own, um, I started going to meetup groups. Just meeting strangers, and just kind of communing with people that I've never met before, just because that human interaction is so necessary. And I feel like that contributes to peeling away that armor and softening. But yeah, I really feel like our life experiences contribute to it. And then maybe for those that did not grow up in difficult circumstances, it's something else entirely different. Maybe it's, feeling like you weren't enough because your parents were, really high performers. Maybe you had social anxiety, maybe, just anything you can pick from, but you're going to have this armor that develops over time, and how we identify it and how we peel it back, that makes all the difference.
I mean, I hate to say it, but today, like culturally, you can kind of back this up or disagree. But like when we peel back these layers, it makes us feel vulnerable and then weak. Why is that? Is that a very masculine type point of view? I hate to say. Like, why? I don't
No, I would
know.
not say it's masculine. I mean, there are plenty of females that also feel vulnerable. I think it's
Okay.
interesting that that's the first place we go with it, because to be exposed isn't necessarily a bad thing, and it's not necessarily weakness. It's trusting whoever is around you to be that open, and I think that's kind of powerful because to have that level of trust with another human being, thinking that they're not going to hurt you or they're not going to chastise you for whatever it is that you're trying to, share with them, that's powerful. I think if we were all more vulnerable, then we could really, grow and become stronger. So yeah, I would identify it as a superpower as opposed to a weakness.
I love that. I love that. I guess there's like for me, like, when I think about the fear of vulnerability, I think of the extreme scenario of like, oh, someone's recording me and they're going to put this on YouTube and I'm going to go viral for the wrong reasons, right? There's kind of that fear, right? Of this
Right,
vulnerability
right.
going the other
Yeah.
direction.
Right. When I was at the, No Kings protest, I went to 2 of them, one for Dallas, Texas, and one for Carrollton, Texas, and, a few times, some people were kind of scared, and they were like, "Who are you with? Where are you from? Are you right or left?" And I was like, "Whoa, whoa, I'm independent. I'm independent. It's just me. I'm working with an international service to send it out to multiple outlets." It was just, working for myself, so with that, they were like, "Okay, cool," but I was met with some hesitation a few times for sure.
But isn't that so interesting that we have to choose sides? Like,
Mm,
why is that? Why it's almost like a team sport
right.
almost, you know? Why is that?
Yeah, yeah, that's a very good question. I mean, I guess from a young age, we're kind of taught to make choices, right? Do you want chocolate milk or white milk? Do you want,
Yeah.
ketchup or mustard? We're always making choices. And then, being introduced to politics, usually in high school or whatever social clubs you're in, you're often put into these groups early on, and sometimes you don't even know why. You just kind of go with the group. When I was in college, I hung around with the people from Greenpeace because I thought, oh, animals and environment, cool, let's do this. And I didn't really give a second thought to what their entire history was. I just saw these really amazing ideals, and I went with that. And then as I got older and I started to kind of research both sides, the Democrat side, Republican, and also the independent side, the liberal side, there is more than two sides. And yes, the other two are more prevalent, but there are some really good thinkers and some really good people on all sides. So I'm kind of middle, like I really enjoy listening to everyone, even if someone is saying something completely asinine. I still want to hear it and kind of figure out why they said that. I think that's the
Yeah.
difference.
No, I agree. I feel like we need more of that today, though. It's like to step back. It's almost like I just picture like two teams going at it, red and blue, and you're sitting on the sidelines, like, oh, that's interesting, and taking notes, here and there.
Right.
And it's like, why are we even playing this game? But then
Yeah.
this, I don't know,
And
it's
it's
kind of
and it's
crazy to
it's
me.
it's crazy to even think of it as a game because it's affecting lives. I mean,
It is.
it's affecting not only our country, but also, worldwide. It's affecting other countries as well, and it's just, it's crazy to me. What I think about every day is, why is the Senate and the Congress, why aren't they doing much, to help alleviate or to make noise? I understand some of them wanna keep their seats, but at the end of the day, there's human lives on the line, so you really are kind of beginning to see, like, who is standing up for humanity and who's not.
I guess what's crazy, like, I feel like I'm not a citizen. I mean, I'm paying my taxes, right? I got them on time this year. But it's like, I don't know, like, I'm from back from middle school, elementary school, when you start learning about the Senate, Congress and all these things, the
Executive
judicial
branch.
branch and all that,
Right,
executive
right,
branch, all these things, right? And I'm still trying to jog my memory. It's like, I feel like I don't know anything, but those things are affecting our work today. They're affecting our lives today.
right.
How do you stay educated and I guess do the work to stay on top of these things? It's almost like a part-time job. All you have this focus on is, okay, I got my full-time job, 9 to 5, or an entrepreneur, and then all of a sudden you get like politics over here. It almost seems like it's like two types of work. What are your thoughts around that?
I think it's important for us to be informed. I remember watching a show, um, uh, The Newsroom. Do you remember that? Aaron Sorkin, it's a show about the newsroom.
See,
What's his
there you go. I'm
face?
showing I don't know anything. That's a problem.
Oh, you need to watch it. Oh my god. It's about the TV newsroom, and the production and stuff is so cool, but the storylines are amazing. But the main character of the show talks about in the beginning monologue about how our country used to be so informed, and that's what separated them from what they were now, is that people read and kept up with politics, and they had informed decisions, and they had media that wasn't, driven toward ratings or to, any agenda. It was about informing the public of what was going on. And because of that, we made more educated decisions and we actually paid attention. Whereas now, we pay attention to whatever is on your reels or whatever is the headlines. That's what we're paying attention to, but there's so much more. And I think reading the news is important. Watching the news from several sources is so important. That's the key. I mean, some people might just watch CNN, or some might watch Fox or CNBC, but you really should go beyond that, and look at Al Jazeera or Reuters or all of these other independent stations that have really good content, and they're not biased. They're just putting out news because they want to inform the public. So I've always been a heavy proponent for having, just multiple sources. And then also reading. We don't read anymore. So
Oh,
that's so
jeez, I
important.
know.
We just watch things, and I'm guilty of it too, but I have a stack of books everywhere I go. I have a stack of books, and I try to dive in. I just, it's good for the brain. It really is.
What's your recent book that you're reading now?
So um, I was reading this book by an author that I interviewed. Her name is Marita Littauer, and it's called Wired That Way. And
Ah.
so it's supposed to go through your personality type and help you identify, and then how to, I guess, perform and function within that personality type. So I'm kind of like on not really a self help journey, but just like a self journey, just because I have a lot of like life things going on right now. And so I was reading that. I was also reading 1929, which is very interesting about the stock market crash. And so that's actually more so about the people behind the crash as opposed to the crash. So that seemed really interesting.
Oh, really cool. So I love your point about staying informed. But I guess again, I look at that as like, oh, that's work I need to do outside my job,
But there's
outside my
wonderful
life.
podcasts now that you
True,
can
there
listen
is,
to.
right, and we can go on to commute and stuff. I guess, how do you strike the balance with, like, what is I guess I'm just gonna frame it as, what is a good citizen today? What does that work look like to be a good citizen today in our country?
Well, I mean, like we just talked about, a good citizen is staying informed, right? In the morning, I kind of put the TV on while I'm getting ready and kind of getting set up so I can kind of listen, and then I'll read some things as well. But I think a good citizen is being informed, but also helping your community. I think it's so important to get out there and volunteer. And, whatever your hobbies are, there is a volunteer group for that. I spent 7 years in a community orchestra as a musician, and then I became the president and the program director. And I was committed, for 7 years to helping give music to the community and inspiring kids to grow up and be musicians, and that was a huge passion, so I, turned that into volunteerism. I really enjoy this one called Feed My Starving Children, where they package meals kind of like MRE style, like the powdered style, and they send it across the world. And so I pack boxes whenever I can. And I just think it's so important to get involved in the community, both on a local level, but also volunteer for whatever, just because, we need more hands, we need more hearts. But at the end of the day, helping out within your local community and communing with people and maybe talking to someone that hasn't talked to somebody in a week because they live by themselves, that's a huge game changer for all of us, I think.
Yeah, I love the concept of community. So, online or offline? You kind of said
Oh,
offline with your example, but
I
what are your
I love
thoughts of
both.
online?
I love
Okay.
both because I mean with Are You Happy, they have like 4 million plus, followers, and then they had a Discord community as well where we would host nights where people could come in and hang out. And so I think that both are beneficial. I mean, you'll always hear people say, oh, social media is bad, right? Getting online is bad, but I really don't think that it is. I think that if we could put out more positive content and have meaningful conversations in these online groups, then that kind of, balances the scales a little bit. I believe with Are You Happy, their content is so positive and it makes people think about, where they are in life and if they're happy. And then with mine, with Humanity 2.0, it makes you kind of look at your humanity and kind of take stock of where you are and ask yourself, am I a good human? And oh, maybe I could be better. All right, so I'm going to be better. Just putting that positivity in the world, it's gonna tip the scales.
I
That's a
love
certain
that.
thing.
Love that. So, in the spirit of Are You Happy, Vanessa, are you happy?
Yes. Um, I mean, I've only been asked that a few times, even though I did that series for 4 years.
I can't
Um,
believe that. For
I
4
know,
years,
right?
only a few
Because I was
times they
doing the
asked you?
asking, and then I
Oh my
taught the
lord.
journalists. Yeah. So, um, I am happy because, like I said, I'm working for myself. I had a soul crushing corporate gig before this. And to go back a little further, when I first worked with Are You Happy as a contractor and then, kind of became part of their world, I spent 4 years doing that. So I was on the road and at home, but for 4 years straight, no breaks. During COVID, too. I had COVID while I was posting videos, and it was amazing experience, but I was still working for 4 years straight, so then I had extreme burnout, for I think maybe like a number of months, but ultimately I would say a year and a half, to be honest, because I spent so many months sleeping and just doing absolutely nothing and interacting with no one. And then I decided, you know what? Freelancing and having my own company, it's hard. And I don't have insurance. So I need health insurance. So I went over to a major insurance carrier and became a claims adjuster there. And I did that for a
Nice.
year. But then in that year, I began to have these terrible physical symptoms, like my face was tingling. I was stressed out all the time. I had nightmares about work, and then I'd have to go back to work and have this living daytime nightmare. So it was awful. And then the humanist in me is like, I can't even help these people who have these dire situations with claims and they're paying so much premium. And I can't even get them a rental car that they desperately need that has, you know, what is it like handles for special needs, because only a couple companies in the country have it, but this particular carrier won't pay for it. And that was just absurd to me. So I had to leave. I had to leave. And so I did leave and I cashed out my 401 and I went back to running my production company because I knew that that's where I was most happiest. And it's been, nonstop ever since. But it's funny because when you work for yourself, I feel like you work harder than when you
I hear
work
you.
for a company. It's yeah, it doesn't stop. If you're not working, then the company's not moving, and so you do a lot of work, but it's a different kind of work. It's the kind of work where you get up in the middle of the night and you go do it because you're just so excited to do it, and then it's fulfilling. And I really enjoy not having someone to answer to. I get to make the rules. I feel like that's been my whole life, kind of, I guess, like, the theme of my life has always been doing whatever it is that I want to do, and if I didn't have the ability or if I didn't have, I guess, the right situation to where I could be myself and do things as I wanted, then I made it happen. I created it. Like, I applied for not applied, I got an internship in a company that didn't have internships. They created it for me. And it was my interview that got them. And in the interview, I said, look, I don't have all the years behind me with experience, but I can tell you that whatever it is that I know how to do, I will rock the crap out of it. And what I don't know
Love
how to
it.
do, I will learn it, master it, and rock the crap out of that too. And I got hired. So yeah, they built this internship and that turned into a client. And just, yeah, I just feel like my whole life is just, it's just non-traditional. And I thank God for that. I really do. But looking at in the grand scheme of things at what I do now and telling people stories and sharing them, I think that's a blessing beyond belief. I mean, you do it too. You interview people, and isn't it like almost it's so it's magical almost to be able to watch people and to be part of their life for 30 minutes, right? And kind of just I guess observe how they answer questions and how they sometimes stop and think about it. And with Are You Happy, we would ask them this question at the very end. We'd ask them, what's your message to the world?
I
And my
wanted to
favorite
ask you
part,
that. Can you I wanted to ask you that. What's your message?
yes, okay, my
Yeah.
message. Okay, let me finish that last thought, and I'll answer that. So the favorite thing was that they would stop, and it was almost as though they were taking stock of their entire lives in, like, 20 seconds, and they had this crease that would happen on their forehead, and it was like this, like that thinking crease,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
you literally watch them relive their lives, and I thought that was so fascinating. So for me, my message is that we need each other more than we think we do. I dreamed about living a very solitude life, and that now I find that I don't want that. I really love being around people and spending time with people in all sorts of ways, and I find that in other people we find peace, in other people we find inspiration, and in other people we find life. And so that's my message is find people. Doesn't have to be your tribe of people, but just find people and grow and learn from them.
What a great message. I mean, that's how you burned out. You said you were by yourself. You were isolated. You weren't with people, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, I was with people for, so many hours a day, but then at the end of the day, I was alone. I guess it's a little different, but
Gotcha.
yes,
Gotcha.
ultimately, I was completely alone because I mean, I was having to film things, having to go here or there, and when you're out interviewing people, it's not quite the same as being around people all day because your main objective is to get the interviews and then move on to the next one and keep going. And so yeah, you're not entirely engaged all the time with people. So yeah, it definitely was alone for sure.
Gotcha.
So
So,
good
Vanessa,
insight.
this is yeah, no, yeah, no, I love it. So this is the Work Sucks, but I Like It podcast. What is one thing that sucks today, and what are you doing to make it not suck?
Mm. About work? What sucks about work?
Sucks about whatever comes to your mind.
Well, I
Whatever
heard one of
crease in
your
your head
recent
is
episodes.
forming. Yeah.
I'm gonna I think Crease is coming.
Right, your
I
think
I
crease
heard
is
one of
turning
your
on.
recent episodes, and it was interesting, I heard the word culture, and I was like, "That is such a great freaking idea." It's so true. I mean, companies are so fixated on the metrics and the processes and the SOPs and the, FAQs, etcetera.
Right,
They don't
right,
think
right,
about the
right.
human. They don't think about the human that's, working in the office. I remember hearing a story about a woman that passed away on like the 20 something floor in a building, and no one found her until the next day, but no one knew her either. And so because there wasn't that culture of, getting to know your colleagues and everyone, coming together, and that's why she died alone because no one even knew she was there. But I really feel like that's missing too, is that culture of community. And I think, yeah, what sucks period is just not considering the human, the person. And you think about AI coming and all of this, discussions, whether it's good or bad in the workplace and so forth. And that's going to be a whole other conversation. But I really think that we need to focus on humans. We're not doing that.
So what is the piece that you think to make it not suck? Kinda line with your message almost, right? That we just need
Mhm.
each other.
Right, right. Creating the spaces. I think. Well, when I have more of a staff and I have an office, I've had staff before. That was lovely. Are You Happy paid for I had editors and interns, and it was wonderful. And now working for myself, it's just me right now. But when I do have staff again and when I do have an office again, my thing will always be to create that culture where there is that space for community and for people to know each other further than what their job duties are, but know themselves, know each other as people, and how they can, help one another, or if maybe they have hobbies that they share, they could, enjoy those hobbies together. It's so simple, but creating those spaces for community and people to commune with others. That would be amazing. Would be a game changer.
That is amazing. So, Vanessa, talk to us briefly about your book that you've been. I Maybe you mentioned it to me, sorry, but I wanna hear
Yes,
more about
yes, I
it.
did. So I have been working on a book for many years, and you stop and you start and you start and you stop. And so my thing has always been that I have not enjoyed self-help books that start off with, "I have a problem," and then, "Oh, I'm happy." Like, they
Yeah.
cut out the middle part, they don't talk about the difficulty and the nitty-gritty and the really dirty details that we really need, because you need to understand that this is me too. I am not alone. All that ugliness, we need that, and it always gets cut out, and it makes me mad. So I decided that I was gonna work on this, like, anti-self-help, self-help book. And so what I would do is that I wanted to gather stories from other folks in the mental health space, right? People that were patients, people that have diagnoses, because every one of them has a story that is needing to be shared, so that way other people that suffer from mental illness, or maybe people that don't even know that they do, can read those stories and get something from it. And I had intended to have artists who suffer from mental health issues, that they would do the artwork, right? So, like, every story, then you have artwork. And I just thought it would be a really amazing collection of stories that could not only benefit the community, but also benefit those that maybe don't even have any diagnoses. So that way they could understand how people feel. Because at the end of the day, knowing and understanding, connecting, talking, all of that is part of who we are. It's who we need to be. And so I call it complications and metamorphosis. And yeah, I've been working on that for years. It takes a long time to collect stories, especially, with folks in that particular space. So,
So when can we expect this piece? I really love it.
ooh, well,
Gonna hold you accountable here, no.
I'll keep, oh, please do. Please do. I'm also working on some not videos, some movies. I have a documentary that I'm working on. It's called I Come From Silence. And so that is the journey of finding my tribe that my family comes from, native tribe, and then also finding my father. So that is one that I'm actively working on, and I just signed on not too long ago as an executive producer for a Mexican horror film, and that is
Cool.
interesting. Yeah,
That's cool.
so I'm very busy all the time, but the I guess the love for storytelling and embracing humanity, that fuels everything. And whether I'm making $100 or $1,000,000, it's the experience has been so enriching, and I've been blessed to still be able to carry on regardless of what my bank looks like.
If listeners of the show, Vanessa, wanna reach out and learn more about your story as you're living it, where's a good place for them to land?
Yes. So VanessaTheVivacious.com has all of my platforms. And then also there's links to link trees, both for myself and for the podcast. So very simple, VanessaTheVivacious.com.
Well, Vanessa, it was great seeing you again, and thanks for being on the show.
Yes. Thanks so much for having me. I hope you have the best day of your life.
One thing that really stood out to me with Vanessa is that this idea of needing each other more than we think we do. Even when we crave solitude or independence, there's still something deeply human about wanting connection, community, and understanding. So here's the skill to work on this week: practice being with other people, really being with them. Allow yourself to experience the person you're talking to instead of just moving through another transaction or liking their Instagram story. Be a human. Remember, success is not about good luck, it's good skills. So, to be successful as a human, interact with other humans in meaningful ways, and we can keep working to what Vanessa calls humanity 2.0.
And there's a wind that blows across the plains, and it sings.